Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures, and today we're going to be doing another episode of our Planet Zoo Mod Spotlights. This will be part 72, so this is probably going to be the last, or second to last, until the next update 1.9. Yeah, I'm really excited to go through a lot of these mods today. We have a lot of fish mods from the Aquaria pack coming in, but a couple of other really interesting mods that we're going to be going through today. So we're going to be starting off with our list of Aquaria packs. So everything from the Arctic cod to our last animal here, which I'll give you a clue, is Yellowfin whatever, is done by Leaf, Jen, and Buffsu. So they've been making the Aquaria packs. So very nice collection of mods that they got going on here. So we're going to be starting off today with the Arctic cod. So you can have a look here. So really wonderful little guys here. So these guys are also known as the polar cod, or and they're a fish named because they obviously live in the Arctic. They're related to two cods, and they get both the common name Arctic cod and polar cod with another species, Arctogracilis glaciensis, but these guys are Borogatus sater as well. But these, as you can see here, they've got quite a long, slender body with a deeply forked tongue and a protruding mouth, and these small little whiskers coming out of the thing, or a little whisker that comes out of the chin. And they grow to lengths of about 40 centimeters, or about 16 inches. And the species is found further north than any other fish, and they're beyond 84 degrees north. And they span the Arctic Circle, so they're typically found off seas of northern Russia, Alaska, Canada, and Greenland. And these fish are most commonly found at the water surface, but they've been known to travel to depths of greater than 900 meters, or about 3,000 feet. And the polar cod is known to frequent river mouths as well, and they're a hardy fish that can survive temperatures between 0 and 4 degrees Celsius, or 32 to 39 degrees Fahrenheit, but they may tolerate colder temperatures owing to their presence of the antifreeze protein compounds in their blood, so that means even in freezing temperatures their blood won't freeze. And they also live in ice-free waters and able to greatly hide and stuff like that and gather in large schools. In terms of their diet, they're fed a lot feed on plankton and krill, and they're primarily food for narwhals, belugas, ring seals, and seabirds, and also fish commercially in Russia. And these are very populous fish, but they're still a victim of habitat declines and prosecution by humans as they hunt them a lot. Also, global warming has increased the temperature of the Arctic Ocean, which means these guys live in the cold water and they have to adapt to, and they've adapted to the cold. And their larvae must be like 3 degrees to hatch normally, and a rise in ocean temperatures can actually easily lead to phenotypic change in the cod species. And they might not be able to adapt enough and could decline or even go extinct if they're not able to adapt to the rapid climate changes happening to our Earth. So yeah, another really cool little guy, also done by Jen, Leaf, and Buffsu. We have got the Atlantic Mackerel, so we'll have to move on to the next guy. So also done by Leaf, Jen, and Buffsu. Have a look at these guys. This is the Atlantic Mackerel, also known as the Boston Mackerel, the Scottish Mackerel, or just the Mackerel. These guys are found in the temperate waters of the Mediterranean Sea, the Black Sea, and the Northern Atlantic Ocean. And they're extremely common and occur in huge shoals in the pelagic zone, up to about 200 meters deep. And they spend their warmer months near the close to the shore of the ocean and near the ocean surface, where they appear along the coast, and they arrive at the colder weather in the fall and river months. And during the fall and winter, they migrate out deeper into more southern water, where they seek water temperatures. These guys, you can see, they've got this really cool elongate body with this steely blue marked with these wavy silvery white lines, and they have these 2 dorsal fins, as you can see here. And also separated with these little finlets and things like that. The typical size for a mature individual is about 30 centimeters, or 0.98 feet, but individuals have been caught to as large as 60 centimeters, or 2 feet, and their maximum published weight is about 3.4 kilograms, or 7.5 pounds. And during reproduction, which they are oviparous, which means they produce eggs, they are typically found near the shoreline in spring and summer, where a female can produce as many as 450,000 eggs, with juveniles reaching sexual maturity at about 2 years of age, and they can live up to the age of 17. And these guys also are a highly commercial species, and they are sought after for their meat because they have strong flavor and they're high in omega-3 and oil content, along other nutrients. There's about 1 million tons of these Arctic mackerel are collected every year, and the bulk of which is sold canned or frozen, or sold fresh as well. And due to the high commercial status, the market is listed as least concern, luckily, so they and has remained sustainable, so they haven't had any risks of extinction or anything like that. So just making sure everyone's doing all right. See a really, really interesting animal here. Big fan. In terms of their diet, they typically feed on copepods as well, things like that. And babies, when after they hatch, they go and do their own thing like a lot of other fish do. Yeah, really, really cool little guy here. I think I covered him pretty well. Wonderful little fella, done by Leaf Jen and Buffsoo as well. And next we're going to have a look at the green Moray Eel. So that's another one that we've kind of already covered before, but I'll go over it. So this is kind of the most famous of the morays. These guys are typically found in the tropical Atlantic, so they range from Florida to the Bahamas to southeast of Brazil in the east, and they can also be found from the islands of Cape Verde and along the Sea of Cortez and Senegal. So they're quite wide-ranging in that regard. And they are typically about a meter or a meter 50, 1 meter 50, so a meter and a half long to even 2 meters long potentially. And these guys live in typically rocky areas and coral reefs that are between 3 to 40 meters deep, and could also be found in seagrass and mangroves. And they're a nocturnal animal, and they hide during the day. They hide in shelter, and they come out to dusk to hunt animals such as fish, cuttlefish, and crustaceans, which they can detect because they have a very highly developed sense of smell. And there's actually not very much known about how green moray eels breed. Or they know that they're egg layers, and they appear to be their spawning grounds are extremely deep, about 400 meters or so. And at birth, the moray eel goes through a larval stage, which is quite similar to the European eel. It looks like a willow leaf, and they measure about 5 to 10 centimeters long. And the larvae are transparent, and they typically feed on plankton. And also, they start out as hermaphrodites, so they start off as both male and female, and then they acquire one of these sexes permanently, so it kind of decided, and it's undoubtedly influenced by the environment, so they kind of hermaphrodite at birth, and then they will settle as an adult sexuality when they can. In terms of a defense system, they when you bite someone, bites tend to get affected and they're also long believed to be venomous, but it's not the case. It's because they often their teeth is often soiled with like decomposing food and such. In addition, these guys may actually have a toxin that causes the food poisoning known as cicadarus. So it's kind of poisoning, but it's not made by the eel. It's just the food that rotting in its mouth or its stuff like that. And like other eels, they are covered in mucus that kind of helps to protect from bacteria and things like that. And yeah, really, really cool guy. Another one done by Leaf and Buffsoo, of course. Wonderful Leaf, Jen and Buffsoo. We've got to make sure everyone's credited. And next, we've got another cool fish. We have got the large-toothed sawfish, also known as the common sawfish. If you see them swimming here, let's see if we can have a look. One swimming over here. Look at this wonderful guy here. These guys are found worldwide across like tropical and subtropical waters, and have just declined drastically and is considered, sadly, critically endangered. So the taxonomy of these guys is a few different species. There seems to be these guys are being split. There's the common sawfish, the freshwater, or also known as the freshwater or river sawfish, Lionsheart sawfish, and the northern sawfish, but these guys are their own species. They can get very large. A large sawfish can reach about 7.5 meters long, or about 25 feet in total length. But the largest confirmed individual was from West Africa. That was about 7 meters long, about 23 feet. It was caught in 1951 in Texas. There was another one caught in Texas that was estimated to be a similar size. But today, most individuals are smaller because the larger individuals have potentially been culled from the population. They typically get between 2 and 2.5 meters, or 6.6 to 8.2 feet. And large individuals may weigh as much as about 500 600 kilograms, or 1,000 to 1,300 pounds. And potentially even bigger, so very big animals. And they're very easy to recognize because they have this really long, like broad bill as well, and they also have these very flat pelvic fins. They look like almost as like a skate, but they get the name the sawfish because that large rostrum they have with the spikes here that almost look like a chainsaw, and that's where they get the name from. And you can see they're also grayish to yellowish and things like that. Really, really cool. And in terms of their habitat, they can be found pretty much worldwide to tropical and subtropical areas. pretty much anywhere they can be found. There's been found in the Mediterranean, in Vargrets. They've been found in Florida and northern Australia, the Horn of Africa. And they're primarily found in estuaries and marine waters at depths of up to 25 meters, but mostly less than 10 meters, or about 33 feet. And they do seem to have a greater affinity for habitats that are freshwater, like a small-toothed sawfish or green sawfish, or any types of sawfish, really. And they reach sexual maturity at about 2.8 to 3 meters long, or 9.2 to 9.8 feet, at about 7 to 10 years old. And breeding is seasonal, and they are ovoviviparous, which means they give birth, they give birth babies, but they don't have like a placenta or anything. They keep the eggs inside their body. The adult female can breed about once every 1 to 2 years, and the gestation period is about 2 months. And it's indicate that the mothers actually return to the sites where they were born to give birth to their young. And their average litter is about 1 to 13, and they each are about 72 to 90 centimeters, or 28 to 35 inches at birth. And they're likely born in salt to brackish water near the river mouths, but they move into the freshwater when they're young and spend the first few years of their life there. It's about 3 to 5 years. And sometimes up to 400 kilometers in, and even in the Amazon basin they've been seen even further upstream, but they're mostly younger individuals under 2 meters long. Occasionally these young individuals become isolated in these pools, and they may live there for years. And the potential lifespan of these guys is unknown, but they have been estimated to live between 30, 35, 44, and 80 years, so potentially quite a long-lived fish. These guys are a predator that feed on mollusks and things. As you can see, they've got this low body here that allows them to feed off the bottom of the water. So they use their saw. They don't use it to attack anything, really. They use it to both stir the bottom of the ground, or the substrate, usually if it's like sand or mud, to find prey. And then they use the saw if the fish is trying to swim away quickly. They will stab it and try and grab it. And they're pretty docile and harmless to humans, except when they're captured, and they can swing that saw around and can severely hurt you. But these guys, as their name, the common sawfish, suggests, they were once plentiful, but they're now considered critically endangered because of overfishing and habitat loss, because people like to eat them, and all people also use their saws as weapons and things like that. But they were really extirpated from a lot of the places where they live. Among the 75 countries where they used to live, they have disappeared from 28 and may have disappeared from another 27, and only found another 20 countries or so. And they only live at about 40% of their former range. And only Australia has a still relatively healthy population of the species, and maybe the last remaining population that is still viable. So there needs to be some serious conservation efforts in that area to really help them. There's probably still a lot of them, but they need to have a more sustainable population that is kind of very rare because people have been hunting them. But luckily, there are efforts to protect them. They have been, I believe there's efforts and protections and stuff. I'm sure there's probably going to be efforts to reintroduce some into different populations and things like that to try and get the numbers up. But they're also found in public aquariums, so there could be some breeding in that could help. Really, really wonderful animals here. I'm a big fan of these common sawfish, also done by Leaf Jan Buffs, of course. Next, we've got some tuna. So we've got 2 species of tuna. We're going to be starting off with the Atlantic bluefin tuna. So quite a big fishy that we've got going on here. Let's see if we can find them. There we are. So this is the Atlantic bluefin tuna. Let me just check. Yep, Atlantic bluefin tuna. So these guys are a species of tuna that are also known as the giant bluefin tuna, or the tinny, or just the bluefin tuna. These guys are native to the western and eastern Atlantic Ocean, and as well as the Mediterranean. And they've become extinct in the Black Sea, sadly, and they're a close relative of the other 2 bluefin tunas, the Pacific blue tuna and the southern blue tuna. And the Atlantic bluefin tuna has been reported to get up to like 680 kilograms, or about 1,500 pounds, and they rival the weight of swordfish, blue marlin, and black marlin as the largest mechaniforms. And in recorded history, they've obviously been quite a highly prized fish for commercial food as well, and also for commercial hunting as well, because they have great size and power, and they're good for fishing as well. And they've actually become the foundation of one of the world's most lucrative commercial fisheries, with these guys being sold at high price for sushi and sashimi, though they have been some big issues with overfishing with that, as we'll get into. So in terms of their size, you can see they're quite torpedo shaped. That allows them to swim very fast. They're very, very fast swimmers. And this is used to catch prey, with fully mature adult specimens getting between 2 to 2.5 meters long, or about 6.6 to 8.2 feet, and weigh between 225 and 250 kilograms, so 496 and 551 pounds, with the largest record being about 679 kilograms or 1,497 pounds, and was about 3.7 or about 12 feet long, with some other large individuals being claimed as well. But they also believe that these guys can get up to about 50 years of age, especially in these very large specimens. And they're actually very enormous, so they have enormous muscular strength that they're able to use to swim very, very fast. They also possess the highest blood hemoglobin concentrations among fish that allows them to be more efficient and take in more oxygen. And to keep their core muscles warm, they actually use power and steady swimming. And the Atlantic bluefin uses countercurrent exchange to prevent heat from getting lost into the surrounding water. So they're basically able to pseudo-thermoregulate, so they're able to keep warm blood in their bodies and able to thermoregulate in a more highly developed way than other fish, which is actually really, really cool. And in terms of their biology, they dive down to depths of about 1,000 meters or about 3,000 feet, and they typically hunt small fish such as sardines, mackerel, herring, and even invertebrates such as squid and crustaceans. And they're opportunistic hunters, and they will hunt in schools organized by size. And these guys will produce up to about 30 billion eggs as the species is described as oviparous, which means they lay lots and lots of eggs. They typically spawn in two widely separated areas. The eastern stock is in the western Mediterranean and the Balearic Islands, while the western grouped stock is in the Gulf of Mexico where they breed. And pop-up satellite tracking has confirmed that the large bird is believed to help by many scientists that they spawn, and each area may forage widely across the Atlantic and return to areas where they spawn. So protecting these areas is very good for trying to preserve these populations for the long term, so you can still use them but also have fish obviously for the future. And they're often collecting these large concentrations to spawn, but they're such times highly vulnerable to commercial fishing, which can be a big issue. So they actually thought to mature at different ages. So the bluefin, both in the east, are thought to reach maturity about a year too earlier than the spawn in the west. So often protecting these populations means that, and protecting these spawning areas means that we'll be able to have fish for into the future. So they obviously, I mentioned they've been a big thing in commercial fisheries because people have liked them and eat them, and it's been unrestricted, so that caused a big decline in their populations. They were even considered endangered for quite a while. And there have been some efforts into aquaculture because these guys are so famous and people don't want to take them out of the wild. There's been some efforts to really protect the wild population since it declined to nearly 90% since the 1970s, and they're starting to try and breed them in aquaculture indoors or farm them, which is very hard to do because they're a very large open water fish, but there are efforts and there has been starting to pay off. And some of the conservation efforts that has helped them recover from basically critically endangered to least concern is that there have been some protections of quotas, also protections of spawning areas. Organizations have been talking about it and things like that. So it's a really great story of how they managed to bounce back from something like that, and a great example of how we can have sustainable fisheries into the future. So yeah, another really cool animal here. Next we're going to be talking about another type of tuna. Again, this is done by Leaf, Jen, and Buffsu for both of these guys. We have got the Yellowfin Tuna. So these guys are found in tropical and subtropical waters across the world, very similar to our big Atlantic friends here. Their often name is also called they're closely related to the big eye tuna, and their Hawaiian name is the ahai, and they often get confused for other things as well. They are among the larger tuna species, but they don't get quite as big as the bluefins. They can reach about 180 kilograms, about 400 pounds, and they're significantly smaller than the Atlantic or Pacific bluefin tunas, which can reach over 450 kilograms, but they're slightly smaller than the big eye and southern bluefin tuna as well. Reported sizes for these guys has been high as about 2.4 meters or about 7 feet 10 inches, and it's 200 kilograms, 440 pounds. There's some ranging about that size, but are kind of on average as I mentioned, about 180 kilograms, 400 pounds, and about 2 to 2.5 meters long. Really, really interesting fish. And there was a fish that was caught that was 193 kilograms and was actually sold with a prize with $1 million. So that's pretty cool. So these guys are epipelagic fish. That means they tend to live in the surface areas of open water, and they like to mix in the surface areas of the thermocline. And it reveals that these guys, especially sonic tracking, is that they mostly range with the top 100 meters of the water column, and that they can dive to deeper depths if they want to. And they spend most of the time in waters no more deep than 75 meters or 246 feet, but they've been recorded to having dives up to about 1,000 meters deep or 3,000 feet, which is pretty interesting. In terms of behavior, although they're mainly found offshore, they may approach shore when suitable conditions exist. So in places you can see them as like the Hawaiian archipelago, the Caribbean, places like that, and even on the continental shelf. And they often travel in schools with similar-sized companions, and they sometimes will even congregate with other species of tuna, also dolphins, porpoises, also whale sharks and other animals. Things like that, they'll often congregate with that. They also associate with drifting like things, and they've actually been shown to follow like moving vessels and things as well, so that's pretty cool. In terms of their diet, they typically eat things like pelagic crustaceans, squid, tuna, and also things like flying fish, mackerel, pretty much whatever they can get their mouths around. And in turn, these guys are preyed upon by larger tuna, seabirds, larger sharks, even false killer whales. Pelagic sharks, also marlin, will also eat young ones as well. And they're able to escape from most predators, but unlike most other fish, they are, because they're warm-blooded, so they're able to really like keep themselves going even in cooler waters. And they can reach speed of sometimes 50 miles per hour, which can navigate enormous distances. Sometimes they can even cross entire oceans, so they're very, very efficient fish. And very similar to the story of the Atlantic bluefin, these guys are obviously a very, very common fish. Caught, believed in 2010, 500,000 metric tons of yellowfin was actually caught in the western and central Pacific Ocean, and they're often caught by pole and line, also like other things like that. And people have been, they're often fished from nets, and often these nets can have issues with bycatch because they catch dolphins and porpoises and turtles and things like that, which is very, very bad. But they've actually made efforts to try and fix that as well. And also sustainable fisheries, and just trying to make sure that people don't take too much from the ocean that they can't obviously replenish their populations and keep them for the long term. Just similar practices to the Atlantic bluefin, just make sure you have sustainable fisheries, things like that. Really, really awesome fish by Moto. I like Moto. Really, really nice animals there. So all these fishies were done by Leaf Jen and Buffsu, just making sure you know that. And our next one was done by just Leaf and Jen. We have got the Blackface Impala. So really wonderful guy here. So these guys are kind of similar just to a regular impala. I believe they are a subspecies. The Blackface Impala, yeah, they're a subspecies. So these guys are a subspecies of impala that is restricted to southwestern Africa. So they occur around northwestern Namibia and southern Angola. And they're believed to diverge from their ancestors, well, not this particular one, but the impalas separated from their ancestors about 18 million years ago. So there's not really too much difference in the impalas. They typically get a medium size. They reach a head to body length of about 130 centimeters, with males reaching about 75 to 92 centimeters or 30 to 36 inches at the shoulder, with females slightly smaller, about 70 to 85 or 28 to 33 inches tall, with males also weighing about 53 to 76 kilograms, and females 40 to 53 kilograms, or that's between 117 to 168 pounds to 88 to 170 pounds. They're also sexual dimorphic, with males having these large horns and females not at all. And you can see they've got this like glossy two-tone counter shading going on. We've got like the orangish to yellowish, and then the light underside. And the differences you can see with the Blackface Impala is that it's obviously got this black face going on. It's much more obvious. And in terms of these guys, they're mostly active during the day, though they tend to rest during the midday hours when it's hot, and then they feed and rest at night. There's often three distinct home groups. There's usually like territorial males with home territories, also bachelor herds, and also herds of females and their young. And these bachelor herds tend to be small, but the females will have larger herds of about like under 100 individuals, while a male's one will be less than 30 most likely. And it also impacts on climate and geography as well. And when it comes to rut, these groups will come together and fight for mates. And these guys are also pretty important predators for several carnivores, such as leopards, cheetahs, and lions, and they are quite good jumpers. They can jump up to 3 meters over vegetation and even cover distances of up to 10 meters in a single jump. And they're really adapted to run fast to get away from these predators, which is very interesting. And in terms of their diet, they typically feed on browse as well as graze. They typically feed on monocots, things like that, succulent vegetation, stuff like that. Their diet can usually consist of about 45% monocots, 25% dicots, and 10% fruit, which can change a lot during the dry season as well. It just changes and depends on the seasons. And in terms of their breeding, they reach sexual maturity about a year old, though they typically only successfully mate after their first 4 years, especially for males. Mature males will establish a territory and try and gain access to the females, and females will obviously watch the males as they fight over dominance, and then the dominant male gets to mate with her. Generally, gestation for these guys takes about 6 to 7 months, and births typically occur during the midday, where the female will isolate herself when the labor pains begin. And the presence of the females, the perception of the females that can delay giving birth for an additional month in conditions of harsh has always not been realistic. And then a single calf will be born and is immediately concealed from cover for the first few weeks of its life. The fawn also joins the nursery group within its mother herd. And then the calves will suckle for about 4 to 6 months, with young males being forced out of the group once they're old enough, and the females will stay. So in terms of their habitat, they typically prefer areas like woodlands with a shade, but there will be some variation with it. It also seems that a reduction of woodland and scrubland by African bush elephants has actually favoured populations of impala by increasing the ability of more browse and stuff. So that actually really helps them. This is a good example of some relationships, like elephants helping these guys thrive a little more. Let's have a look at the male before we leave to the next animal. Historic range, they used to be a lot more common in some areas like Burundi, northern Uganda, but they have shrunk a bit. And it's particularly the Blackface Impala is quite restricted. And they are considered least concern with the normal subspecies, but the Blackface Impala, as you guys here can see, they're considered vulnerable. And in 2008, there was believed to be fewer than 1,000 left in the wild. And though there are no major threats to the common impala, there's been some serious threats that impacted this common and the black-faced impala, which it includes things like poaching and natural calamities, which has really hurt their populations. And there's believed to be over the quarter of their population occurs in places such as, especially the common impala, like Kruger National Park, things like that. But the rare black-faced impala has also been introduced to private farms in Namibia and Estonia, where the population density has been quite large. And so these guys, even though they're a subspecies, they still deserve to be protected. And there seems to be efforts to try and protect them as well. So introducing them to parks where they can obviously have a better chance. With less than 1,000 of them in the wild, it's definitely not good. But yeah, that was done by Leaf and Jen. Next, we're going to have a look at a mod done by Narwhal, which I'm very excited to talk about. I'm a big fan of this. We have got here the Asian forest tortoise, or the Burmese mountain tortoise. So these guys are a species of tortoise that are only found in Southeast Asia, and are believed to be one of the most primitive living tortoises, based on modern molecular studies. And it was also believed to be two subspecies. There's believed to be one that lives in southern Thailand, Malaysia, Borneo, and Sumatra, with the other one living in northwestern Thailand and northeastern India. And these guys are the largest tortoise that you can find in mainland Asia, with the largest adults of the northern subspecies, Rhinoma emis ferelangi, can reach up to 25 kilograms or 55 pounds in the wild, with much more than that in captivity as well. The carapace, as you can see, is also considerably depressed, and its depth is not half of its length, and it's quite squat, as you can see there. And they actually have a large plastron with these what you call gular projections, which means they can actually use that for fencing and things like that. They also have a moderate head size with these large jaws that they use to break up food and things like that. And they also have these hind limbs with these large tubercles to help, obviously protect as well, as you can see here too. And adults, you can see, are typically brown and brackish in marking, with the carapace of the juveniles being a little bit more yellowish with dark brown markings, as you can see there. And as I mentioned, the distribution is found across Bangladesh, India, Malaysia, Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam. So they're quite common around Southeast Asia. And we're going to talk a little about their breeding and talk about their endangered status. So they're actually the only tortoise known to lay eggs above ground in a nest, where the female will construct the nest out of leaf litter. And the female will use both her front and rear legs to gather material and lay up to 50 eggs in this pile. And they actually will sit on them as well and near the nest to protection. And she will chase predators and intruders away to try and protect them, which is pretty interesting. And sadly, like a lot of other turtles from Southeast Asia, these guys are critically endangered because turtle is a kind of delicacy there, or tortoise really, and a lot of these Southeast Asian species of tortoises are either endangered or critically endangered because of just vast overcollection and poaching, and also habitat degradation as well. So these guys are considered critically endangered, but there's luckily populations of in captivity people trying to protect them as well. There's the Turtle Survival Alliance and things like that are really helping these guys prosper into the future. And I think they are just really wonderful little guys, as you can see here. Really wonderful tortoise. It's nice to see Narawala try and make things out of the box, especially with these wonderful tortoises. Can't wait to see more reptiles and birds and things. I'm always a fan of birds and reptiles and things like that. Just a nice variation, of course. And last but most certainly not least, we've got one just made by Leaf himself. We have got the ring-tailed Visara, I believe how you pronounce that, also known as just the ring-tailed mongoose. Its name is Malagasy, so it can be hard to pronounce sometimes. So really, really cute guy here. So these guys are a Euplurid, which are a subfamily Giluridae, which is a carnivore in a group that is pretty much native to Madagascar, and that includes animals like fosses and relatives animals like that of this guy, and they're considered least concern. These guys, there's very much a disagreement where the Malagasy carnivores place, but they seem to be mostly related to not mustelids, but like civets and things like that, or mongoose, which is pretty interesting. And the common name comes from the common name in Malagasy is Bonustra mena, which means Ren Vonishta in Malagasy. And yeah, really, really cool animals. I'm a big fan of these guys. Let's have a look at one that's not climbing up and have a look at the one in the sun. So these guys are relatively small, but they're the largest member of their subfamily. The group of Malagasy carnivores, there's a lot of different variation within them, but the largest one is obviously the fossa and the extinct giant fossa. These guys typically reach a length of about 32 to 38 centimeters, or about 12 to 15 inches long, and they weigh only about 700 to 900 grams, or about 25 to 32 ounces. As you can see, this body is long and slender, and they have this pointed snout. And their body, you can see, is this dark red color, and the feet are black as well. And as the name implies, where they get the name the ring-tailed mongoose, their tails are kind of black and with red rings around it, and it's actually quite similar to the red panda and kind of looks here. And these guys are very, very agile little predators, omnivores. They're good climbers as well, as we just saw before. They're also quite active and playful during the day, and their habitat typically consists of humid forests and places like that across Madagascar. They are endemic to Madagascar and only found there. And their diet is very generous. They considerably eat things like small mammals, invertebrates, fish, reptiles and their eggs, also bird eggs as well, and occasionally insects and fish, so they're very generalist in that regard. And the population of these guys is believed to decrease by 20%. They're still considered least concern, but because of the mass cutting down of forests and stuff and habitat loss in Madagascar, their population is believed to have declined by 20% between 1989 and 1999. And another problem that has been an issue is the competition with the introduced small Indian civet. So these civets were obviously introduced as peoples came into Madagascar. So, yeah, some really, really wonderful animals, though. I'm a really big fan of these guys. I like these weird little guys getting the spotlight a little more. I like showing off the weird animals no one really talks about. And the Vanishka is something I've heard about before, but not really talked about in detail. And I'm really glad that there's people trying to give really weird and wacky animals a spotlight, and so we can learn more about the wonderful world we live in, of course, and the wonderful animals we share it with. So yeah, I think this will be a very great place to end the video. So yeah, I really, really, really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit the little bell icon to get notified about anything. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.